paper out, and we should be ready to do some scientific notation. Now, unfortunately, you have some classmates that are not as good at math as you are.
I know that's why.
So, they have done Google. They tell you that they have written these numbers in scientific notation, and because you are oh so smart, you tell them in the most polite manner possible, you're wrong. So, of course, them being middle school students say, no, you. And this goes on for some time, and eventually, yeah, see, I'm hip with it. And eventually, they want you to prove it to them of why they're wrong. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes, and you can talk with people around you if you need to, but about the math. Why aren't those three numbers written there? Why aren't they in scientific notation? Now, let's pause for a moment to talk about your homework before you dive into that. Your homework still over on the board says 821, the giant assignment from yesterday. But up here it says 822 also. We're going to get into 822 today. It's going to be the next homework. Due dates are kind of like meh, especially as we flip quarters. So I'm currently trying to figure out what to do with your quarter 3 practice that I don't want to like keep you here and whatever else. And a lot of you guys didn't turn stuff in. We'll deal with that situation at some point. I have, whoever turns stuff in, I have that saved. You're going to get your test back today. We'll talk about all that here at the end of class probably. But just if you want to write it down. I think we're going to give you a flex kind of catch-up day at some point, and by we, I mean me. I say we when Mr. Smith is helping teach my other class. So that's our next homework. It's the whole 822 review. No, you don't have to do it tonight. If you have time to do it, yeah, you could do it. So no stress on that. But fix your friends in ABC. We want to write them in correct scientific notation, and if you can't figure out how to fix them, just go from the wrong way to the right way. Go from the wrong way to the standard notation, right? Not using times 10 to a power, but just the number as it is, and then put it back into scientific notation. Right now, they're in a times 10 notation, but it's not scientific notation. So try those out, see what you can figure out. I'm going to give you, 2-3 minutes-ish, sounds good. There's 3 problems, so 3 minutes, that'd be great. But Quinn, that's only because you're not fantastic at this yet. Yeah, but either mean multiplication. Notice they're using both to keep your brain nice and flexible. A 0y? No. And that x isn't an x, it's the multiplication symbol. The problem is it looks like our English letter x. Octavia, why aren't these in scientific notation? What's wrong with them? Remember, you can always pass, but I'm just going through cards today to see who was really paying attention yesterday.
I wasn't here yesterday.
Can I just answer the question, or
What do you mean, can you just answer the question? You can't answer the questions if you don't know why it's not scientific notation. Otherwise, your answer is just like, okay, they're fine.
it has an exponent? No.
Scientific notation has exponents. So, Quinn, I hear you. Did you watch the video? No, you probably should. This is something where, without watching the video to understand what's going on, you missed all of the intro. So at some point, you should probably go back and... So, we need to help Quinn know why these aren't scientific notation. He was gone yesterday and doesn't understand what the heck we're doing at all. So, Lizzie, you're the next card. Are you able to help Quinn? No? Gwendolyn? Sure, why isn't it scientific notation? Ah, we can't have a number in the tens place. So for this to work out, my first number would actually need to be 2.56, not 25.6. Now we're still going to have times 10 to the, but of course it's not going to be 4 now. Mallory? To the 5th, how'd you figure that out? If we write it in standard form. Trying to decide if I should say that or not. I want to remind you guys, and this is hard for like the compressed class or like any like advanced class you end up in. This is new content, like brand new stuff. If you don't do the practice, you won't get it. You might get it a little bit, but you won't master it to the level that you need to. So if you're sitting here right now and you're like, crap, I didn't do my homework last night. This isn't easy for me. Yeah, that makes sense. So I need to re-encourage you guys, and I need to post the Chapter 8 answer key. I just realized in this moment it's not on Schoology yet, so if somebody wants to remind me or throw up a message on Schoology, that would be a perfect reminder. But if you didn't do your practice, you're probably a little uncomfortable right now because this didn't solidify in your brain. This 4, Quinn, this is a review for you, tells me to move this decimal 4 places to the right, because if I multiply by 10 4 times, that's what it does. Every multiplication by 10 bumps the decimal. So this is the real number, but in scientific notation, as Gwendolyn said, the first number must be between 1 and 10. It has to have a single digit out here. It can't have no digits out here, and it cannot have a double digit out here. Does that make sense? Like that restriction. So then Braden, what about B? The first number in B looks right, but why is it not scientific notation?
Because 100 should have an X.
Okay, so 5.46, what do I write then to fix this? Because remember, scientific notation has to use times 10 and then a power. What power of 10 would make 100?
Oh, okay. 2.
Absolutely. Here's the trick. Tens, hundreds, millions, quadrillions, whatever. However many zeros is the power. So 10 to the 18th is a 1 with 18 zeros. 10 to the 30th is a 1 with 30 zeros. It's the number of zeros. Put on the 10. Right, on like the 1. Be careful, it's not the number of zeros on the number necessarily, depending on what's going on. A lot of times it is, but I don't want you to think it's a blanket rule. And then C is also broken. Connor, can you fix C for me?
9.3 to the 10 to the 7th power.
Yeah, so if we move it right, my power goes down. If we move it left, my power goes up, actually. And we could get here by writing this out as 9, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Because 8 in total spaces to go. That's my real number in standard notation. To be scientific, I have to put the decimal here, and that is 7 spaces away. Questions on that?
zeros in a row. So what happens if it's like 9, 3, 7, 6, blah blah blah. There's like no zeros. Could you write that scientific notation?
Mm-hmm. So, great question. If we had like a standard form number of 8675309, Jenny got your number. We're gonna make it scientific notation. Jenny got your number. The decimal goes there. We do times 10 and then we. What's my power?
But that seems to be more work.
I know. So it's not always the best answer. So now Jenny's number is in scientific notation.
You inquire,
I was inquiring. Many choirs.
you need to sing in forum.
So any big number or any small number can be written in scientific notation. As Connor just said, though, this isn't really any easier. We mainly use it when there's a bunch of zeros at the end before the decimal, or a bunch of zeros after the decimal before the numbers. So a tiny number like 0.0000000000000, then 8675309 would then be a better number to put in scientific notation, because if we write this as 8675309, what then is our power to land here? Well, okay, from here we have to go back, so left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
You weren't here yesterday. Watch the video. Catch up. Sorry, I give you every opportunity to not miss anything, so I have very little sympathy.
But the
Like-
videos are so long.
Speed it up. You can't speed up real Mr. Hudson, but you can speed up YouTube Mr. Hudson.
Well,
Write these in scientific notation. Pop quiz. You're grading yourself, but pop quiz. And all that means is feedback check. We're giving yourself feedback, so I know how to do this. If this is your standard form, excuse me, and remember, that's what we call regular numbers, the standard form.
Wait. 843 is the same thing as 854. 843 is the same thing for 854. Hey.
oh no, I don't like where this is going.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
In case you didn't know what I was just singing. Oh, where'd my cards go? Simon, what should the first number when I write out A be? Like, what comes before the times? Absolutely. Then, Marin, what is the power of the 10? To go from here to here, how far? 8, 6, 7, 5, 3. Okay, then Peyton, everyone keeps moving. What's my first number in B? 4.871 times 10 to the power, George.
Power 10.
Here's a nice little trick. The comma separates sets of 3s. right? So we can go 3, 6, 9, 10.
Yeah.
Right? So you can quickly kind of get your brain trained to do that. Do we have... I know. Do we have any other... What? It's fine. Do we have any other... He's just looking at a woman through the window. It's not creepy or anything. The 80s was a much simpler time. That was like romantic. You'd like throw rocks at windows and it was like, oh, he loves me.
The age of paranoia.
What? I think it was 80s. I think that was an 80s something. Oh, yeah, 70s, like kids just did whatever. Okay, so... Are we comfortable? I'm about to move on out of this lesson. Are we comfortable taking standard notation into scientific notation?
Yeah.
And the other way around? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so now, and Connor actually asked these questions yesterday, our lesson 822 deals with putting powers to a power. So, let's talk about 822. Okay, computer. So, I would squiggly line your notes, if you would. Here are the things that we want to think about as you approach these questions. And we ran into a couple of these situations yesterday, right? Where we said, ooh, be careful, that power only goes with that number. And remember what we talked about with a string of multiplications? Even though we don't always show the multiplication symbol, there's a string of them happening. So what part of the expression actually has the power? What are the factors in the expression, and how can we rewrite it to have the fewest or most combined terms possible? So instead of writing x, 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 we would write x to the 4. Right? So fewest terms possible. So 59 is going to be our first problem we dive into here. We start with 10 squared times x cubed times 10 times y. Try your skills. Clean that up. What can we put together? Just do this on your own real quick. This is kind of a review of what we did yesterday. Olivia, what can I combine here? The tens, right? So I have a 10 squared. And what's the power of this 10? 1. So when I put those together, we get 10 to the third. Can x and y combine? No, so I just have to write it out. 10 to the third, x cubed, y. Here's another notation note. Like a little sidebar about notation. This is better than that. And they're the same thing. But this is better because we tend to, in mathematics, go from higher power to lower power. So since the y only has a power of 1, it is more better, or whatever you want to say. I don't even know what word it is. It's not right versus wrong. It's just cleaner, better presentation if you put higher powers first. Okay? That's something you don't need to know right now, but you might as well put it in your brain so you start training yourself, as opposed to having to change what you do later on in your math career. Right? So I'm not going to count anything wrong, but that's the cleaner way to write it. When we go and look at B, Marley, what can we combine there?
You can combine both of the 20s.
Yeah. So I'm going to give some vocab to what you're saying. You're saying they both have the same base, right? So the 20 is the base, and you might make yourself a little note if you forget this word. What we're doing right now is base to a power. That's all we're doing. The thing to the power is the base. Now this is different than if you say, I don't know why I'm starting with the base. This is much different than if you say base power, which really means turn it up to 11. No, like bass guitar.
Well, that's like thinking of
Please don't play another song from the
If it's
80s.
clean, please, no. Yes, play another.
So 20 to the, what's it become, Marley? 20 to the 11.
But can power go to base?
Like if you turn up the bass guitar, that would be bass power.
Like, how is bass, like, bass switch?
No. Nope. Micah, what about C? I'm going to leave this open.
Do X5
X to the 5th.
times Y squared.
I agree, but I'm going to put it over there.
And then Z7.
So that actually would go over here if we try to write this in the clean way. So the cleanest way to write that would be Z to the 7th, X to the 5th, Y squared. Only because the higher powers coming first is better. Not right versus wrong, just better. Normally the number comes before the letters because it's the coefficient. It can come after, but normally, like, so not the power. Obviously the power always comes after, but a coefficient normally comes before the variables. Wait.
Government would go first, then like the state government, then us.
I don't know. That's not my branch. That's not my expertise. That would be more pedigree. All right, so Aaron wants to rewrite 5 squared x squared times 5 to the 4th x cubed in a simpler form. So she starts by expanding. Guys, math isn't like some code words. Like when we say expand it, make it bigger, right? So she just makes same expression, but 5 squared, 5 times 5, x squared, x times x, 5 to the 4th, 5, 5, 5, 5, x to the 3rd, x, x, x. So then she writes it like this.
Oh, I see what she
Now wait a minute. Using cards, Savannah, what would you say to Aaron? Always welcome to pass. Do you spot her mistake? By the sound of the class, at least, I assume there's a mistake here because everyone was like,
I see. No.
I sometimes wish I had the Muppet dudes. You know how they're like, well, this is horrible. This is... You know what I'm talking about? The guys up in the... Yeah, like it's up in...
Now,
No one's ever going to use this map.
oh god, now I've got Swedish Chef in my head.
Alright, do you know something or you want to pass?
I don't know why.
Alright, Quinn, what would you say to Aaron? Even though you're out yesterday, can you jump on board and see what's wrong?
Yeah, so getting back on the ship, 625, it's no, because I don't agree with her work, because in order for her to rewrite it and to make it simpler, you would combine all the 5s into something like what you would do for the x's.
Okay.
Also, because if you're wanting to make it simpler form, you would combine the x's to make x5.
Okay.
And for the 5s, 5x.
Okay. Gabe, what else do you say?
Or 5, 6.
Ah. Aaron. This is multiplication, not addition. Come on, you silly nilly. This should be multiply, multiply, multiply. So as Quinn said, if we tried to clean this up, it would be 5 to the 6th, x to the 5th.
I did it.
Come on, Aaron. Don't switch multiplication to addition. That's silly.
And it's close enough.
All right, so I did not print these because we talked about this yesterday, and I hate printing on printer paper. Graph paper literally uses less trees. So dive into these. I don't care if you work with people around you, if you work independently. We introed this yesterday thanks to Connor asking that deep question. But we looked at how does a power to a power work? Right? Well, 5 squared really means 5 times 5. And something, anything to the 5th means that multiplied 5 times. So 5 squared to the 5th means 5, 5 times 5, 5 times 5, 5 times 5, 5 times 5. And really, it becomes 5 to the 10th. So if we wanted to formalize this rule, a number, and you don't have to write this here, you can write this somewhere on your notes, a number, write any number to the power of x raised to the power of z becomes that number to the what?
X times Z.
The product of x, z. Now, my request, so this solidifies in your brain, expand it, then write it condensed. So over here, we could write 2 to the 8th, right? We could do the multiplication, but I would ask that in this space, you write out the expanded form so your brain gets in that like process of why we're doing this. Please trust me on this. You might sit here and think, well, this is easy, but getting your brain used to, okay, what does this mean? That's why we want to write them out. So ignore what I'm doing up here unless you need help. I'm going to fill in this table, and you guys should as well. So I'll give you a minute to get all of this column written down. Please just start by writing these down. Then we'll do all the... Please just start by writing down that left-hand column. Then we'll do all that work. What?
Yeah, I thought it was super ironic because it's meant for 8th graders and it's rated R.
I think it's actually meant for parents to understand what 8th grade is actually like. Your parents have no idea. Like, seriously, they have no idea what your life is like. Because it's so different than what it was when you were here. There's a movie called 8th Grade, and apparently it's rated R. So 2 squared means 2 times 2. So that would be your expansion, right? 2 times 2, 2 times 2, 2 times 2, and 2 times 2. Now, another way we could then write this would also be, sorry, and this should really, actually, I'm going to move this over because I think it will, would be 4 to the 4th. Right? We could do inside the parentheses, right? P comes before E, parentheses before exponent. We could do this instead like 4 to the 4th. So this would also be 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, which, I mean, we can figure that out from over here.
Yeah.
No, much bigger. That'd be 4 plus. Remember, this is times. Very big. It would be quite large, quite fast.
Well, I just go to quickly.
Wait, so how do you think about that?
3 to the 7th squared is like when your sibling's trying to annoy you.
Yep.
3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3.
Do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again.
Well, I have to do it again. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3.
Why is it making me laugh?
Because you're a 7th grader.
Oh. I laugh at everything. So
Yeah, you
that's another thing.
Here's the secret. Becoming an adult just means you laugh in your head instead of laughing out loud.
That's it.
That's it. That's essentially it. If you can do that, you're ready. And taxes.
And
So this becomes 3 to the 14th.
Or could
That's a
equal
lot of fruit.
2,187.
Yeah. Yep. Now, x to the 3rd to the 5th. If we jump all over to here, x to the 15th. Now be careful. This bottom one, that's why I'm going to clear this and move this up so I can write more easily.
what? There's more.
This bottom one is the tough one, because if we write out x cubed y squared, right, x cubed y squared squared. Now I see some people just sitting, and I'm hoping what you're communicating is you're so good at this you could master it right now. How many x's total?
6.
How many y's total?
4.
And remember, we're not talking about coefficients. We're talking about powers.
So could you also kind of write something like this?
Yeah, but that's just x. That's x to the 2 times 4. You know what I mean? So that you're just like already doing it, really condensing that down. This is when it gets into the tricky questioning. If we have 20 to the 3rd to the 8th, go ahead and jot this on your paper. 20 to the 3rd to the 8th. What's the base and what's the power? Braylon?
The base is 20 to the 3rd.
Now, why are you why'd you just switch your brain? Why'd you have 2 different responses?
The outer exponent is 8, and the base of that exponent is 20 to the 3rd.
So if the term we're looking at, I love your explanation. If the term we're looking at is the whole thing, and Braylon caught himself, the base is 20 to the 3rd. So really, the base is 20 times 20 times 20, 2, 4, 8, 8,000. Yeah, so really our base here is 8,000. And our power is 8. But if the term we look at is just in the inside, then our base is 20 and our power is 3. Right? But when we look at the whole term, the base is the 20 to the 3rd. And the power is the 8. Questions on base power? So a base can involve a power. That doesn't mean it's not your base.
It's a power base.
But a power, any power, has to be able to match to what's its base. So if we go back up, really fast, and we look here, what's our base in this last one we just solved? X cubed y squared is our base. Cool? Try this out. How are these different? Chloe, are you able to talk to me about the differences between the two of these? So what's different? The order's different, right? Those parentheses switch your order around. So another way we could talk about this is what's the base and what's the power, right? In my blue one, what's our base?
2x.
2x. And the power is 3. So it applies to the entire base. This, in a way, can be thought of like distribution. This power applies to both pieces of our base. 2 gets cubed, and x gets cubed. Well, what's 2 cubed? 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. x cubed.
Whoa.
Over here, the cube only goes to the x, and we get 2x cubed. They look very similar, but they solve extremely different. Connor?
I solved this by just plugging in a random number for x.
No, what do you mean you solved this? We're not trying to
I know,
solve
but I
anything.
just like plugged in a random number and I solved and it was different.
Ah, I see what you mean about them being different. Make sure that you can expand or like do this to get to 8x cubed, because until we're told what x is, we can't really put anything in. So just be careful doing things. Yeah, we can find out that they're different, but we want to make sure that we can get to 8x cubed versus 2x cubed. So AJ is trying to reduce this fraction. Right, 5 to the 7th over 5 to the 3rd. And he has a classmate who tells him to use the giant one, but of course some of you say, oh, the giant one, poo-poo on the giant one. So we need to help AJ reduce this somehow. So take a moment, see what you think. 5 to the 7th over 5 to the 3rd. I broke my computer.
Mr. Hudson, what the computer?
They wanted you to do this problem and you're not, so it's sad.
What did you say I didn't? Oh.
What does 5 to the 7th mean?
Well, I don't know. Wow, that's very big. I did.
No wonder my line was too long. Thank you. So, what happens when I have a 5 divided by 5?
5 equals 1. Wow. Mr. Hudson.
So wait, this becomes...
625.
So wait, could we make a rule about b to the x divided by b to the z base, right? Same base. George?
You would keep the base and you would do x divided by x minus z.
As we looked at yesterday, with multiplication, we are actually adding the exponents. With division, we are actually subtracting the exponents.
You mean adding a negative number?
Here, we'll just say subtracting, because honestly, we're taking away 3 of the 5s from the 7 on top. We end up with 4. Questions? All right, so these tests that I have, to get back to, and I have a little bit more than these. I need you guys to just chill while I try to pass all this out. Nobody made no mistakes, and aside from number 5, which we're going to go over together, I realized 5 was too hard. I think a couple of you got 5. I want everyone to just correct what you got wrong. This is going to be quarter 4. Okay, so it's I decided to push my code forward. So everybody correct what mistakes you got. I did not put progressing mastery whatever because I just want everyone to correct their mistakes regardless of if it's a small mistake or giant mistakes. I want everyone to look back at what you got wrong. Because guys, at this point, I hope you're starting to like drink the Kool-Aid or believe in brainwash or whatever you want to say. When you get beyond Phoenix and you get back an assessment or like some sort of whatever, it doesn't just go in your folder and disappear. That assessment, that feedback should guide you or like help you in some way. So it shouldn't just be look at it and move on with life. It's you look at it and go back and say, like, why did I miss this? How could I get this wrong, or get this right the next time? Like, what did I do? If you can't figure it out, that's where I come in.
I just want to get a new sheet of paper.
Wait, you said we didn't have to do 5?
Do not correct number 5. I was hoping we'd have time to go over it today. And we might really quickly. Totally out of time unless it goes all pretty soon now, 34. Alright, so do not lose those. I need those back before spring break. Okay, that's going to be one of your first quarter 4 grades. We're also going to put this other practice on quarter 4 probably, just because I haven't put it in math yet, and the grades should be in math already. If you lose this, you're going to have to redo it. Okay, everyone got one back, yes? There's no one who did not get a test back, because I thought I had them from everyone. So, you need to correct that separate sheet of paper and turn it in. It'll be a match. Okay? Now, hold up. Last thing I need you to hear. If this test corrections comes back as just answers, it will not be accepted. It either needs to have work shown to provide how you got to your new answer, or an explanation of what happened the first time. So if it's a question that you're like, oh, there's no work to show for this, you can write out like what you did the first time that got the wrong answer. Like, oh, I thought it was such and such, or like, oh, I had a brain fart, da da da. Explain to me what happened if there's no work to go with it. Okay? Hasta luego, guys.
I was still working on it. The only one that I didn't have is 5. So do you want me to still do it, or?
I'd like you to try it. I'm curious if you can get it or not.
I missed my
So,